Welcome to the repository of all things wicked. Our scary story this week is told in honor of the scary. This week's story is called Committing Your First Murder and How to Get Away with It. Part 1. Introduction. Welcome to this short, comprehensive guide on how to succeed with getting away with murder. Hopefully, the suggestions and exercises provided in the following chapters will give you all the inspiration and tools to take care of that nasty neighbor, that cat that always yowls on your fence at 3 a.m, or even that one coworker who does everything they can to make your day as long and miserable as possible. Chapter 1. Reason. First and foremost, before you even decide how or when to kill someone, or even before you decide who you want to kill, you must figure out why. Find that deep-seated reason of why you want to commit homicide. Have you always secretly desired to hurt people? Have you been unmoved by the pain, discomfort, or emotional upset of others around you? Did you abuse small animals as a child? Have you been conjuring demons or other dark entities, and their souls have taken up permanent residence in your body, and you can do absolutely nothing about it, and have become their puppet? Don't worry, this will help them too. For example, let's say that you were wronged or jaded, and you want justice for this. Who was it that wronged or jaded you? What did they do? Do you understand why you reacted this way and continue to unhealthily harbor these negative emotions towards this individual? If at this point you can understand and overcome your darker impulses through other means, then you have no reason to continue reading. If, however, after answering these questions, you have riled yourself into a murderous rage and you're even more bloodthirsty than you were before, please keep reading. Please remember that your desire to kill does not have to be attributed to a specific person. You could just be casually homicidal and sadistic in nature. Perhaps you don't want to kill someone, but just want to see their pain, in which case the maiming and serious injury chapter will be of particular interest to you. Your desire to kill could also stem from an abusive childhood, an abusive romantic relationship, or even an abusive or toxic relationship with anyone, be it familial, romantic, or platonic. And for that, I am deeply sorry if it has negatively impacted your life in any way, and you picking up this book is not a reflection on what has happened to you, but rather the person you have chosen to be in spite of what has happened to you. There are no judgments here. But you must have a reason for killing people, even if it seems completely arbitrary, illogical, or nonsensical to someone else, as long as it makes sense to you, and you are able to superimpose your own morality over the common morality that the majority of humanity has come to accept and defend, that of the taking of another's life is morally wrong, and to some people it is considered sin, even the greatest sin. But you get to make your own judgment calls, because you've made it this far, haven't you? Take some time to think about this. You could go the route of, I'm very emotional and I'm going to impulsively kill someone, but that often leads to mistakes, to rushing things, and often to not always getting your desired target. Sometimes this can also lead to a botched operation where you do not actually succeed in killing the person and end up only injuring them. This also increases the risk of getting caught because you are not taking the necessary precautions to hide your identity from the investigators and police officers that will inevitably show up at your crime scene, unless you don't mind getting caught, which we'll talk about later. Contemplation is key for this chapter, and doing some deep searching in that dried up little pit you call a soul. Chapter 2. Identification. If you are still committed to doing this, if you are truly motivated to destroy someone, then your next step is identifying your target. There will inevitably be some circumstances where the true object of your murderous rage is not immediately or easily accessible to be killed. But Let's start with the easier position. Let's say you decide to kill the annoying coworker that you think is out to get you. You typically try to avoid interacting with this person, both at work and outside of it. Either they are completely oblivious to your livid social cues, or they really are trying to push your buttons and make you angry. They leave the printer jammed or out of ink. They drink your favorite tea even though they hate it, because they want to see the frustration and despair on your face when you open the cupboard and see the empty box. They clog the one good toilet on your floor and leave you to clean it up. When they mess up, they find a way to blame you, and 9 times out of 10, you are called into your supervisor's office to explain, again, how their screw-up could not possibly be your fault in any way, shape, or form. This coworker eats food you wish you could eat but can't, either because of a diet regimen you have subjected yourself to be healthier, or because you are allergic or intolerant to whatever it is. They make a show of it, dramatically prancing around and acting like whatever they are consuming is the single most fantastic thing they've ever shoved down their pie holes. Whether it's ice cream, a dessert smothered in an oil that just doesn't sit well, or the pistachios that make your lips swell up and your tongue burn, it doesn't matter. They are making fun of you because they don't have the same sensitivities and bodily issues you have, and therefore you are somehow lesser than them. You really hate them, don't you? What an awful shrivel of a human being. I'm so sorry you must deal with them. Now that you've chosen your target, you must next study their habits and tendencies. This will give you a better idea of how and when to kill them. Let's say this coworker is routinely late, except on Fridays when the supervisors bring donuts for everyone. He or she never works for more than 20 minutes straight and is constantly playing Angry Birds or Wordscapes or whatever new time-sucking smartphone game their beady little eyes have found. They are constantly drinking coffee, energy drinks, caffeinated sodas, and yes, the occasional glass of water. This leads them to go to the bathroom at least 6 or 7 times over the course of a single shift, sometimes more. They show up either drunk or hungover at least once a week, usually on Mondays or Fridays. The alcohol smell and the potential odors of other drugs cling to their clothes like the smell of death clings to the scrubs of morticians. They can't get away from it. There are a couple of things you can investigate specifically. First, do they have any fatal food allergies? This would be one of the easiest ways to kill them, because some people are hospitalized for accidentally eating something that they didn't know contained a contaminant. Second, do they live alone? If they do live alone, it would be easy to kill them in their home or apartment because there would be no animals or people to potentially witness the event. Third, is there something risky that they do habitually or on a regular basis? Maybe this coworker is an adrenaline junkie and likes to skydive or bungee jump. Making it look like they died in a horrific accident while doing something dangerous and fun would definitely be hard to trace back to you. There are, of course, more questions that could help you identify places and ways to kill them that would require the least amount of planning and effort for you and be the hardest to figure out by professional investigators. If at this point you are not moved by discovering the human behind the annoying coworker, and you have not accepted the fact that they actually have a soul and are a relatively decent person beneath that prickly or otherwise undesirable exterior, then please continue on to Chapter 3. Chapter 3. Method. Now, this chapter is going to mainly focus on different methods of committing murder. However, Chapter 4 will discuss the location aspect of a successful homicide. Both aspects are inevitably tied up with one another because both can influence each other in many ways. I think the most fruitful approach will be to give some specific examples of how to murder someone in this chapter, and then examine the location component of each of those potential murder weapons in the following chapter. First, there are some important questions to ask yourself. Do you want to be present when the person is dying? Do you want to kill the person with your own hands? Or do you just want them to die? These are important questions because they will ultimately determine what you will use. If you do want to be present, but you don't want to actually use your own hands to kill the person, electrocution, a car bomb, or carbon monoxide poisoning are all candidates. That last one would take some creative work on your part if the person in question does not have any CO emitting equipment or tools, but it would be a quick death. If you just want them to die, there are several ways to kill them. One of the easiest ways is poison. Now, if you do plan on poisoning someone, do your research. Different poisons react in different ways, and they do require different doses to be lethal. Cyanide, for example, if given in small quantities, will not immediately kill the victim, but will cause symptoms like headaches, restlessness, and nausea and vomiting, among others. Though none of these things are deadly on their own, if you desire to see them suffer, poisoning someone slowly over time could also be an option. If you want to be present and kill them with your own hands, there is a vast amount of options. Strangling is probably one of the cleanest and surefire ways to kill someone. There's little to no blood involved, and you can either use your own hands or use a household object like a rope, a scarf, or some other narrow piece of fabric or other malleable material that will bend but not break. If strangling is not in your wheelhouse, you could always go for the death by a blunt object. Typically, this would be done with something very heavy and solid, usually made of metal or a dense piece of wood. The easiest way to kill someone would be to deliver a very sharp blow to the back of the head. This could kill them immediately, depending on the force of the impact and the blunt trauma. But if nothing else, it would knock them out cold, making the rest of the murder relatively easy. Also, blunt objects are pretty easy to find around your own home or the home of your victim. Potential weapons could be axes, golf clubs, baseball bats, the big, heavy-bound dictionaries or encyclopedias, heavy picture frames, and crowbars, among others. Now, this is a very brutal and potentially bloody way to kill someone, especially if you must hit them more than once. Another way to kill someone with your own hands would be to shoot them. Whether you already have a gun, your victim has a gun, or you steal a gun from someone, make sure you have multiple rounds and aim for the two places that will ensure immediate or near immediate death, the heart or the head. Now, because of the fluctuating gun control laws in the United States, it may be more difficult in some states than others to purchase a gun. Stealing a firearm or using another method of murder might be better in this scenario. However, a gun is a really easy way to go. The concept is not very original, but it would definitely get the job done. And of course, there are the bloodier methods for those here that enjoy the gore. I would call a lot of these methods hack jobs for obvious reasons. Potential weapons include steak knives, machetes, switchblades, swords, razor blades, hunting knives, and more. If you want to go for a quick, easy death by stabbing internal organs or slitting the throat, try to find a blade that is very sharp and high quality. A hunting knife could be quite appropriate for something like this. Now, you could just stab someone once and be done, or stab them multiple times, depending on how angry you are or how you want this crime against nature to go down. Another method, though much messier, would be to cut the person up into pieces. It would be easier to get rid of the body if it were in several pieces, but there would be blood and body parts everywhere, unless you planned for that. These weapons could also be useful for a slow, painful death if you wanted to make someone suffer, but of course we will get to the maiming and injuring in a later chapter. I understand that this is not an inexhaustible list of potential murder weapons, but hopefully I either brought up something that you could use or I inspired you to find something that works for you. If you are not psychologically perturbed by the horrendous acts of violence and crime I have described thus far, and you are still prepared to end someone's life, please continue to Chapter 4. This brings us to the end of part 1 of Committing Your First Murder and How to Get Away with It, told in the repository of all things wicked in honor of the scary. Please join us next week for part 2 of this story, and also for macabre poetry. And please subscribe and join the undead family. We're dying to have you.